Mark Hansom remains an enigmatic figure whose handful of thrillers from the 1930s are highly sought after and much praised, but of whose identity nothing is known. Many contemporary writers were suggested, be it Walter S. Masterman, E. Charles Vivian, or the equally eponymous Rex Dark, but since the offices of Hansom's publisher, Wright and Brown, went up in flames during the Blitz, verifying who actually wrote the books is very difficult if not impossible. A potential lead is that all the Hansom books were published by cheap reprint paperback publisher Mellifont, some as late as 1951, when Mellifont apparently only republished books within a couple of years of their original publication to try and cash in on their relative popularity, leading some to suggest a connection between Hansom and Mellifont. His first novel was the 1934 The Shadow on the House, which Karl Edward Wagner placed on his famous list. Master of Souls came out 3 years later, and it will be this that we shall be reviewing. The story begins aboard the Andaman Queen, coming back to Britain from India, where the passengers are crowding about, trying to find place in the lifeboats, before a German boat rams them in the fog. Philip Darnley, the protagonist, however, gets thrown off the boat in the collision. He eventually avoids drowning after losing sight of the ship when he stumbles across a small sailing ship, but when he climbs aboard he finds it deserted, with only an eerie light shining from the passengers' quarters. A man carrying a lamp on board sees him and runs away screaming. When he sees the man again, he finds 2 of the sailors sitting below deck, and he learns that 5 members of the crew had already committed suicide out of fear. When he eventually meets the captain of the ship, Captain Yeager tells him why. The man who chartered the ship, who is in the hold, brought a corpse with him and is making it scream. Philip, who had heard a lot of screaming during his time on board, still finds this to be too incredible and decides to climb outside of the passenger cabin to see what is actually happening. And once he makes his way inside, he sees exactly what Captain Yeager said he would. He also meets the bizarre occultist Morazzetti and the woman at his side, the so-called Egyptian woman, a wicked, vile woman whom Yeager calls the wife of Satan. Philip is dropped off at Dover, notifying his fiancée's family of his survival, but he keeps being pursued by Morazzetti and the woman, whose ghostly nature is apparent to most people outside of Philip, who is quite in denial about it until almost the end of the book. When he arrives at Norman's Keep, the home of his fiancée Evelyn, he finds Morazzetti taking a house nearby and declaring his own intention to marry Evelyn, despite only having met her a few days ago. Though what he means by marriage is quite different to what most people would assume. The rest of the book is focused on Philip trying to fight the horror of the Egyptian woman as she stalks about the house, her gaze sending people into a near-death-like trance, as well as trying to outsmart the domineering Morazzetti, who seems to be able to command absolute obedience with only a word. The book is good, in fact, very good, though it never again reaches the superb atmosphere as on Captain Yeager's ship. Plus it is a bit short, with the ending a bit abrupt, and Morazzetti's dispatch being somewhat underwhelming.